I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's a regular meeting on Monday, January 22nd, 2024 at 2:03 p.m. And Commissioner Mendenhall is going to ask you to stand for prayer.
Thank you. Do it. Gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you this day and we humble ourselves before you. Father, we pray that you will give us guidance and wisdom and leadership as we go through this meeting. And dear Lord, as each and every day goes by, we pray for our county, our state, and our nation. As we go through some trying times, however, we know you're in control of all things. So we ask for thy final blessings upon this meeting. All of these things we ask in thy precious name. Amen.
Please join us for Pledge Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get an approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? All right, passes. This time, we're going to open the floor for public comments. It's 2:04 p.m. Just real quickly, for public comments, you're limited to four minutes. If the 4-minute timer goes off, I'll give you a chance to finish your sentence. If you're here with other people and if you want to give your minutes to somebody else, if you just announce that in advance, and we'll add whatever time to how many people that you want to do. I want to remind some people, I didn't think I'd ever have to say this, but we do have rules and decorum, and when your time is up, then you'll go as long as I'll let you go, but then you got to stop, and you need to stop. I also want to ask people, turn off your cell phones. We seem to have a problem with people coming from some part of the county that leaves their cell phone on, and once you disrupt the meeting, I won't tolerate that no more. First up is Terry Fowler.
Good afternoon, commissioners,
Afternoon.
staff, and citizens. I'm here today to speak with you about the proposed occupancy tax and how the dollars will be distributed among the county and the municipalities. I'm speaking on behalf of our city council as well. We are aware that it is proposed to collect 6% occupancy tax, as that is a maximum amount that can be collected. We would like to suggest that you take 3% for administration, which would include printing, advertising, and other administrative matters, and 3% be divided among the 3 municipalities within the county by a formula according to what is sent in by those collecting the tax from all the municipalities. As our communities continue to grow, and especially King, we know that the proposed amount of collection would increase over time. We do understand that King and all the municipalities will have a seat at the table when the Tourism Development Authority is formed. Thank you for your time, and we would appreciate your considering our request. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Terry. Rick McCraw.
Good afternoon, commissioners, staff, and citizens as well. I'm here also today to speak about the occupancy tax and how the revenue dollars will be distributed among Stokes County and the municipalities. After researching the Megan Strategy Group, I was very impressed with their program. I was looking at their website, and they talk about focusing on shopping and also cities as well as natural resources. With the TDA group will the TDA group be promoting such things as Stokes Stomp, Walnut Cove Car Cruise In, King Fest, King Meet You on Main, the Palmetto Theater, Arts Center, 4th of July fireworks, and etc.? I know it's talked about being a tourism, but I think that's just as much as important. I understand that King and the municipalities will have a representative on the TDA board, and I'd like to be, if y'all can provide us with the other members that will be on that board. I understand it's proposed to collect a 6% occupancy tax. I'd like to see 3% also authorized for administration, and then the other 3% divided among the 3 municipalities within the county. After looking at their website, I see that some of the counties, the county gets 3, and then some of the cities or towns get 3. I know Pilot Mountain in Surrey County and different counties, they do that. So I'd like to see that as far as the board. I understand that the proposal is for 6%, and I would like to see the 3% divided among the municipalities. Thank you again for your time and understanding. We really appreciate your consideration on these requests. Have a good day.
Thanks, Rick. Mary Burton?
Good afternoon. Before I start, I'd like to apologize to Amber for walking out of the meeting last time. I was frustrated, and
Understand.
she has a difficult job. And
I want to walk out too, but we can't.
Okay. I'm here to discuss the significance of local animal welfare ordinances. Local ordinances go beyond the minimum requirements set by state cruelty laws. These ordinances reflect the values of the local community and its taxpayers. Local ordinances play a crucial role in reducing suffering by holding dog owners accountable for neglect and abuse. In Stokes County, we have established higher standards for animal welfare compared to the laws passed by the General Assembly. Local ordinances bridge the gap between inadequate state laws and the priorities of local communities. Those involved in animal welfare enforcement often find that state cruelty laws are only applied when a dog has already succumbed to abuse or is on the brink of death due to neglect. This is a very low standard. As a compassionate community, the taxpayers of Stokes County have established a higher standard, a stronger level of protection for the innocent and voiceless dogs in our communities. Commissioner Cox once asked why state law does not prohibit tethering. The answer is that state lawmakers create laws for the entire population of North Carolina, 10.5 million people, including industries and corporations. In contrast, local laws reflect the compassion, intelligence, and values of local residents. Local ordinances directly reflect the moral priorities within a city, town, or county. The spouse of an Animal Control Advisory Board member recently claimed that our animal welfare ordinance is being rewritten to make it more affordable for pet owners. However, affordability should never be a consideration when drafting animal welfare law. Animal welfare law is wholly unrelated to cost and focuses solely on preventing suffering, minimizing cruelty, and ensuring public safety. Proper animal care can be quite expensive because it involves various responsibilities that require significant financial resources. Animal welfare ordinances protect the dogs who live at the fringes of the available resources in our county. These ordinances safeguard the dogs whose owners fail to provide proper care. If any one of you has experienced spending multiple consecutive days and nights in sub-freezing wind, like the chained and penned dogs in our county did this past week, please raise your hand. Domestic animals need protection from neglect when temperatures drop below freezing. Recently, our wind chills have been in the single digits. Every year, dogs freeze to death outside due to the negligence of irresponsible individuals. It is essential that you maintain the existing laws we have to ensure that we minimize suffering to the greatest extent possible. When it comes to animal welfare ordinances, progress should be our goal, not regression. Stokes County's Chief Animal Officer, Tommy Reeves, wants to take us back to a time of brutality, barbarism, and widespread cruelty that existed here 5 decades ago. The citizens of this county will not tolerate it. How we allow people to treat animals is a reflection of our character. In 2020, Walnut Cove veterinarian Deb Cowan stated in the Stokes News that it is time we come out of the dark ages with regard to animal welfare. The ordinances that have been enacted to protect dogs from neglect ensure a more humane existence for those forced to live their entire lives outdoors, alone, and without relief. It is your duty to preserve and safeguard local ordinances to protect the vulnerable residents who cannot defend themselves from neglect and abuse. We do not want a lawless county. We do not want enforcement officers who casually and repeatedly turn a blind eye to suffering. Through the persistence and dedication of advocates who have witnessed the cruelty inflicted upon animals, we have finally achieved better protection for neglected animals. The citizens of Stokes County urge the 5 of you to uphold the important laws that have been established through decades of concerted effort. How many of you remember Operation Dark Hollow, where over 90 animals were rescued from a 12-acre property in Danbury, our county seat, after a life of pure torture? If such an extreme level of abuse can occur, even with existing laws, one can only imagine the horrors that will come to light if these laws are repealed by this commission. Lack of regulation results in unsanitary living conditions, cruel confinement, substandard shelter, starvation, and other horrifying instances of neglect. The absence of regulation directly leads to suffering and, in some cases, slow and painful deaths. If you look at Stokes County through the lens of history, particularly with regard to animal welfare, we have made significant progress. However, there is still more work to do. The last thing we want to see is a return to inadequate standards of care for domestic companion animals. It is your responsibility as commissioners to uphold and protect the ordinances that have been duly enacted to prevent unnecessary suffering under your jurisdiction. Thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you, Kathleen.
You're welcome.
This ends the public comment section. At this time, we'll start with the manager commissioner's comments. Commissioner Mendenhall, would you like to start?
Sure. I'll be short today. Rather long-winded a couple meetings, so I'm going to cut it off short today for y'all. Thank y'all for being here. It's always a pleasure to see citizens come out and take an interest in our government. Because we're here, we're here to serve y'all. Try to understand your comments as you come forward, and I just want to say thank you for coming out today, to each and every one of you. And to anybody that's watching on live stream, thank you for tuning in. And I hope all of you have a safe journey home. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Chandler. I'd like to welcome everybody that's participating in our meeting today. We appreciate that. I'd like to thank the elected officials and folks from King who spoke about the occupancy tax. We'll definitely take that into consideration. I need to do some more research and probably talk to Eddie and Tori some more before we lock in. I kind of thought the TDA was going to decide about that distribution, but we'll be very transparent about who's on the TDA and make sure you guys are all participants in that process. And I think you were talking about 3% of it going to the municipalities. One question I would have, would you limit it to 3% to the municipalities? don't want to, you know, if you're kind of saying 1% to each one, that might not be right. There may be need to be more depending on what the project is or what we're doing. So I don't want to be so rigid that we have unintended consequences where the money doesn't end up where it's at. So we're very open to your request, I think, making sure that that gets handled properly. The only other thing I have is I was at a political meeting this past weekend where several candidates were speaking. The subject of the $90 million came up for the school facility upgrades and renovations that was included in Perry Peterson's report. And a couple of the candidates said that did not include plumbing, electrical, and HVAC upgrades, which didn't exactly make sense to me. 90 million, I couldn't figure what else you'd spend it on if that wasn't part of it or whatever. So I asked Amber to double check with Stewart and Perry, and that all those upgrades of those three areas, plumbing, electrical, and HVAC, are included in that $90 million figure. Just for the record, wanted to get the record straight on that. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Wood?
Thank everybody for coming. Especially, also, I want to mention I've had so many people say they watch every week on YouTube, and I wish they would get a life or volunteer to do something more important. But thanks for coming. Thanks for the city of King being represented. The 60 plus we done last Thursday, and it was breezy, but we delivered over 4 tons of food to 101 families, and the people in Sandy Ridge, and I saw some Virginia tags. So that program is going real good, and thank Jill and Ben for what they do. I'll close with my little quotes that always come up. If alone we could do so little, together we can do so much. Helen Keller. That's all I got.
Commissioner Cox?
Yes, I'd like to thank everybody for being here today, for the public input, the comments. I would also like to recognize and thank Renee Bridges, who's here. I think we talked about at one of our meetings that she just happened to be on the scene when a motorcyclist was hit over in King a couple weeks ago, and he's out of the hospital and he's doing good, but she was able to administer aid right on the scene, and just happened to be at the right place at the right time, and a very good outcome, and thank her for that, and all of our EMS folk and first responders for sure. And thank for the City of King folks that were here and their comments. I think like Rick was saying, when this committee gets formed, I think a lot of those questions can be answered, and you know, I know it's on for discussion today, but I think we need to look at what some of the other counties are doing and how they divvy up those funds, and I agree with what Mayor Rick was saying about, you know, promoting all of those types of events, and the money from this fund should be available to do that, all of those types of funds, and not just tourism per se. So I agree with that. And as far as the animal control ordinances and things, I don't think there's anybody on this board that is willing to go backwards from where we are today, for sure, and hopefully can make some just common sense changes going forward. I think when we get this, we're going to have a new building, and we've got new employees and things, and we just need to move in a positive direction, and I don't think anybody wants to see us go backwards from here, for sure. So that's my 2 cents.
Amber, you want to go? And then I'll go last.
Sure, I'll keep it brief. Welcome to everybody here. Thank you for all of your comments to City of King. We can definitely look at that. I know we've had some discussions in the past, but it's not too late. This is just a draft, so we can definitely look at that. Thank you to Kathleen for your words and your apology. I appreciate that. That's all I have.
Welcome, everybody. I appreciate everybody taking an interest in your local government. Just a couple things. I went to a class Thursday in Raleigh it's a leadership class for chairs and vice chairs put on by the North Carolina Board of Commissioners Association. It was in Raleigh. It also gives briefs on like new legislative laws that have been passed that affect whether it's our code of ethics or could be perception of being involved in situations where it looks like you're not being totally objective in terms of the way you vote. So I did learn a lot, and I hope I'll be consulting with our county attorney, and since Jennifer's here today, I guess I'll start with her with some stuff there. It was a very good class. A little humor. It's not really humor, but sometimes even myself. I mean, I've only lived up here full time since 2015, but we take things for granted. The county we live in, like a lot of people take for granted. You wake up every morning and drink a cup of coffee and you see the beautiful mountain views. People take it for granted because they've just been up here. That I don't take for granted. But the one thing I did take for granted, I realized that at 3:15 we were taking a break, and we were getting ready to go outside, and a gentleman walked in and said that I need everybody please just to stand by me, and I got an announcements to make, and they said that they've had numerous cars broken into, vehicles in the parking lot, broad daylight. So they said if you go out, your car, if your window was shattered, just wait there, kind of raise your hand. There's a Raleigh officer that's going to come down the line and take reports and everything. So I went in there, and through the grace of God, due to parking situations, I got a F-350 and I got an extended bed. I didn't know what the parking was going to be like, so I didn't take my truck. I took my wife's Subaru. And as I started looking around, I started to notice there was a common denominator to all the vehicles that were broken into. They were all trucks. And so when I was talking to the Raleigh officer, I had asked him, I said, why do you think they're breaking into trucks? He says they're looking for guns. And so I guess a couple things. Number one, I was armed, had my credentials, but I left it in the Subaru, so they missed out on that. If I'd have taken my truck, then I would have got hit, and I probably had been missing a weapon and missing my police credentials. So I really appreciate, I know we have crime here in Stokes County, but I really appreciate, because I can remember the days in Fayetteville going to people and saying just what they had to say, and it's heartbreaking where people are coming to stay in a hotel, and then they're victimized. So I do thank the lifestyle that we do have here. In the terms of along the lines of public safety, I just a good friend, he was killed in the line of duty a few weeks ago, and I know just like with Commissioner Cox, she has a son. And I've got family that's still in law enforcement. I got good friends. So what happens with our public safety people, and that's why I don't want us to forget that the people that go out in front for us, whether it be the police, the sheriff's office, our firefighters, our EMS, our telecommunicators, that we cannot forget what they do, and also in how they're treated for the most part. And in today's times, even our politicians don't stand with them. And I just want to share something, because when someone doesn't come home as a police officer, it changes everybody's lives. So Dale left a wife, Kelly, left a 16-year-old son, Will. And it's just heartbreaking. So I spent most of my day Saturday afternoon into the evening, and they came up to our house, and we talked. it will never be the same. Never. And I just want to make sure that Stokes County understands that we need to appreciate when you see that sheriff car going by, you see that police car going by, you got somebody that's willing to give their life up for us. And it's just not their life, it affects their family's life forever. Forever. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you for listening to me. All right, that ends our public comments. So I'm going to read our conflict of interest. Before moving further, does any board member have a conflict with any of the items on the agenda for today, or one that could be perceived as a conflict of interest? Okay, we have no conflicts. Next up is the consent agenda. Does anybody have any kind of comment to make before I get a motion for the consent agenda?
I just have one quick thing, Mr. Chairman. The last time when we were talking on one of the topics, I think performance appraisals, Jamie was here, the HR director, talking about the numbers of employees we have. And so I was looking in the minutes, and I don't think the minutes need correcting. I think they correctly reflect what she said. But I asked one follow-up question, but I was still confused a little bit. So I went and talked to her after the meeting. And in the minutes it says, I was looking at the numbers today of our active employees compared to 2016. In 2016 we had 280 active employees, and now we have 450 that we're fighting to keep here. And then, like I said, I had a question, and then she said, I asked her about if it included part-time employees, and she said, including part-time employees, the number would be 538. So that's the reason it didn't make sense to me. It's the reason I went back for a little bit of clarification from her, and she gave it to me. Basically, when I left as county manager, about the time frame she's talking about, we had between, I think, 280 and 300 full-time employees. That number has now gone up, I think she said, to 340 something full-time employees. And then the larger number she was giving was part-time and permanent part-time. So I just wanted to clarify that we haven't added that many full-time employees. But one thing, Amber, it would be helpful if you might do maybe just at the next meeting, if you would give us a breakout, maybe during your comments, of each category of employee we have and how many we have currently. And there might be something like you might make a note on that organization chart that we recently approved. You might just when you update that chart, you might just update it with a note that shows the breakout of employees or something. I've seen that done on other ones. That was my only comment about the consent agenda.
I think anybody else would have any comments?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
And all in opposition? All right. Passes. Next up is the information agenda, and first up is Register of Deeds Brandon Hooker. We'll make a presentation. Come on up, Brandon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me today. Happy New Year to all of you. Here today to give you a report on our second fiscal quarter of our current budget year. We collected $56,573.50 in recording fees in the quarter, and $85,691 in excise tax, for a total revenue for the quarter, gross revenue of $142,264.50. And I'll make a note, did you receive a new updated front page of that report? I contacted Amber today. Shout out to Miss Darlene Bullen. She caught an error in my math on the report when she was reviewing it for today's agenda, and my recording fees were off. It originally was $46,624.70, and that was just wrong. It was just an inaccurate number I had there. So my total was right, because it's based on the report, your second page of your report, and it's that top number up there. But I must have had another number in my calculator at the time. Anyway, that should be 56,573.50 on that top line. You can see the number of deeds and other documents we recorded in the quarter. So our transactions over last year up 21.37%, and all their revenue was almost 9.5% decrease. And I'll talk about that in just a second. Our total remitted to the state out of those funds of the 142 number, $52,794.30 for the net revenue of the quarter of $89,470.20. We're halfway through our budget. Our first 6 months in the office has been pretty comparable to last year. 2 years ago was peak for our local market, but this last couple of years have been fairly steady. And I'm sure you noticed that transaction increased 21% over last year, and that was our website, as you know, was down in October. And we had a lot of title searchers and so forth in the office making copies that they used to make from home and in their offices, and that attributed to a lot of the increase. So when you take out just the copy increase, it was only 2% increase in transactions. So, but it's still an increase, so that was good. And if you're wondering why the transactions increased and revenue decreased, that was sales. We didn't have as many sales in that quarter as we had over the previous year. October, November were fairly steady. December was pretty slow. It was our slowest December in a few years, but we're already ahead this month of where we were in December at this time. So January's picked up a little bit. But our sales and transactions are higher than they were pre-COVID. Like I said, a couple of years ago is when we peaked. But the last couple of years have been steady between 400,000, 425 in net revenue. It's a 35-40% increase over the first 3 years I was here, and that's not anything I did. That's just the way the market is. But that's the way it's fluctuated over the last few years. And we used to average around 290 for about 3 solid years. And outside of the peak year 2 years ago, we've averaged a little over 400. And if the Fed lowers rates like we were speculated to this upcoming year, we could see an uptick in sales. That'd be real nice. I also wanted to mention that because our access site was down in October, we lost it. It did affect our property notification service. And Commissioner Morris asked about, I reviewed last time I was here just in case somebody asked me a question and have the answer. So I went back and he asked about the link on our site to that particular site, and it was corrected within a couple of weeks of my last report here to the board. So anyone wanting to monitor their property and so forth in our office can create an account, that free account off of our link on the county website. But it did affect it so that if you created an account before July 1st last year, you're okay. After July 1st, you'd have to create a new account, but our vendor Logan Systems has already sent emails out to everyone, so they are already aware of it, but I just wanted to reiterate it here in this public forum. Going over 2023 just a little bit, I don't report on vital records a whole lot, which is birth, death, and marriage records, but in the calendar year of 23, we recorded 9 birth certificates. That's a lot for us with a hospital that doesn't deliver babies. We had 9 births last year. We usually have 2 or 3. We had 410 death certificates and issued 256 marriage licenses. I think I lost a page somewhere. There it is. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, 256 marriage license. That number represents about $9,000 of our net revenue for the calendar year, and that's the most license we've issued since I've been here in 1 year. And we've had a lot of wedding venues pop up. That's a growing industry, and I think just our beautiful scenery here. There's been a lot of demand for it. And that's the most, like I said, we've had in 1 year since I've been here. We got a lot of good wedding venues in the county. A few highlights while we're on 2023 of the year. We began electronically recording maps in July. And with that addition, we now accept every real estate document electronically. And we've had 3 surveyors locally to sign up to take advantage of that new method of recording. We finalized an 18-month back indexing project with courthouse computer systems, which will improve access to records beyond our digitizing year. So in 1993 backward, back to 1979, those group of records, we'll be able to index or to search the index by first and last name. Currently, you have to go through just the last name, then find the first name, then find the book and page. This will make it a lot easier. It'll make it exactly what you're accessing now from 93 forward. And we should have that imported into our current system in the next couple of months, or next month, hopefully. We digitized all of our highway project maps, which date back to the late 60s. They are one of the last records we haven't had digitized, and so we got those done this year, and those will be available online soon with everything else. We preserved and digitized mayor's license from 1880 to 1883, and the 1884 through 1886 box that we have is currently at the Preservation Lab in Greensboro. That leaves about 30 years left of our mayor's license, and we'll have all of them completely indexed and digitized, and that's almost 200 years worth. In August, I hosted a genealogy workshop, had a lot of good attendance, and we're probably going to make that an annual thing. I'll have it again this summer. We had some personnel changes. We lost Deputy Judy Puckett to retirement, and Assistant Donna Rogers to our HR department. And I hired Miss Cynthia Collins and Miss Kim Overstreet for those 2 positions respectively. That wraps up 2023, and my goals for this year, I'm still working on the property fraud seminar. I've talked about that the last, I think, couple of times I've been here. It'll explain the dangers associated with fraud, property fraud, expand on what we've done already in the office to deter it, and provide some tips on how to avoid falling victim to that crime. My aim is to offer that to local Riverton Rotary clubs, senior centers, libraries, etc. I'm going to kick it off with my first presentation next month at the King Senior Center on February 19th. Also want to expand our business partners and our Thank a Veteran program. That's something that our veterans have been very appreciative of, and we want to expand that as much as we can. I plan to partner with our local Reading venue, speaking to them, to establish a link from our website to theirs, which will, it's a page on our website listing all the requirements to get a mayor's license in our county. I know the venues because they get questions about the requirements, and I don't know that they know all the nuances of it, and they can just direct the couples to the link on their site to ours and make it a lot easier and take some of the burden off of them. They'll already be more prepared when they come in the office. Completed a disaster recovery plan for our office and records, and a lot of this has already been done. That's been a hot button issue the last year or so in the office, statewide. A lot of counties have fallen victim to cyber attacks and so forth, and you have to worry about data recovery and things like that. And a lot of us have been working toward that. Power outages, floods, and so forth, and there's been a big push to get us all better prepared for those kind of events, and we've already been working on some of that. I want to complete that this year, and also begin a new filing system for our old maps that are currently not digitized and still glued or stapled into our old deed books. A lot of those have not been taken out and done anything with. We occasionally have attorneys and title searchers looking for copies of those maps, and they're used to having everything online, and those are not. Those are something that we haven't touched yet, and it's going to be a big ordeal, a big project, but that'll may carry over into next year, but I'm going to get the ball rolling on that this year. That's all I have.
Mr. Stokes, you have any comments, questions?
Good report. I don't have any questions. I hope those 9 home births were planned.
I hope so. You can ask Brandon Gentry, he may know.
True. Good report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wood,
Good job.
Thank you.
Mr. Morris,
Good comprehensive report.
Mr. Mendenhall.
Well, I'm going to also say a good report, but when you get to go last and 4 people says the same thing, I'm always stuck here at the end, but good report, Brandon.
I put that excise tax comment in there for you because you always ask.
Yeah, I knew you did that. You rascal, you.
Brandon,
Thank you.
are y'all getting text on the live stream?
Yeah, it's recording, but Ken's working on the live stream portion of it. So it is recording, though. So either way, it'll be uploaded.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
either
got
way.
one too.
All right. Next up is the draft resolution authorizing the it's Duke Energy and Environmental Impact Programs Grant Award. Tori May will be presenting.
All right. Wanted to bring a little good news to you today at the beginning of the meeting here. I'm sure Brandon had good news in his report as well, so that's great. Last Friday, we met up with Jimmy Flythe, the Director of Central Region Government and Community Relations, and he presented Stokes County with a $10,000 check for a grant that we had written on the Dan River mile marker signage project that we've got going on. So back in November, I helped to put together a grant with the Duke Energy Foundation under their environmental collaborations programs, and we submitted that, and on December the 19th, we were notified that Stokes County was the recipient of one of those grants of over $500,000 grants across the Duke Energy Foundation. So a little history on the project. We've, myself in economic development, Eddie McGee, the tax office, we've met with EMS and fire marshal under the previous economic development director. And back in early 2021, we worked to collaborate on how to bring a better awareness of the Dan River to those who were visiting the area, because during COVID, there were a lot of folks who were finding the outdoor adventure in the Dan River in Stokes County and not necessarily knowing where they were at, or knowing that the river goes in a flowing river and not in a circle. So the education part of this would be the mile markers along the river, and we've been able to work with the mapping and GIS specialist Greg Hunsucker, who's put together a great map of the river. We have a little booklet that's been put together, and Greg has actually numbered the miles of the whole entire river basin from the headwaters to the tailwaters. And when you're marking the river, you mark them from the highest number to the lowest number at the tailwaters. So similar to the fashion of marking an interstate highway. And the section of numbers in Stokes County, we have 52 miles of river, and that section of numbers may not be 1 to 52, but it would be the continuation part if a county on the other side of the river or Rockingham County wanted to join up and join into the whole program process. It's made up of different colored sections of the river, so that each sign is a single color and a number, and anybody of any nationality would be able to report to 911 what color or what number they may have recently passed to know where they're at. And of course those signs would have GPS coordinates to help locate where someone was at or someone's last point that they remember. And even in heavily traveled areas of the river, we would hopefully do mile marker signs. So with this $10,000 grant from Duke Energy, we hope to get started with the project within the highest traveled area of the river, which would be between Flincham Road and the new Pitzer Road access, which Duke Energy helped to fund as well. Of course, this photo was taken at the Pitzer access. In this PowerPoint, I've got a little copy of our map here that Greg has worked on with the different color-coded sections. This is the Justice Mill area up at the county line, Collins Town area. Coming further down, this would be right before Hart's access. and then between Hart and Lynchburg Road, 268. 268 being in the red, that's when the color sections get a little narrower. You've got the, Greg has marked the quarter miles on that map that's on the screen there. And just the whole idea behind this is just to bring a better awareness. You've got people who are traveling and wanting to look at the river or check out different sections, and they can say that we floated from mile marker whatever to whatever, and we want to go to another mile marker section and float to another river access. Also in the budget that we provided in this grant, we mentioned kiosks at each river access point. We're working on, just last week we had a meeting with the Dan River Basin Association on the Dan River State Trail. Of course, you know, the river is part of the Dan River State Trail now, statewide, and that helps with grant funding and other initiatives. And DARPA is going to be working on some projects in Stokes within the next couple of years. And Anna Wheeler with DARPA, she was real receptive to this idea when we brought her here to Stokes County and met in the tax office with a few of our folks. We've also presented this whole project to the safety committee within the county a few times and did an update recently to them. Just wanted to let you know that we're hopefully getting the ball rolling with this. We're working on getting some engineered plans for the signage. Richard in the tax office has put together some volunteer agreements and some landowner agreements, so that when we get going, we'll check with all the landowners along the river, who all have been identified. And if for some reason some landowner didn't want it on their property, we could go across the river or budge the number and the mile marker and make sure that the coordinates are correct. But we would make sure all of that was documented. And folks at Duke Energy would be interested in volunteering hours to go and put signs up along the river. Also, there's some volunteer efforts from river groups with the Dan River Basin Association who'd be willing to do that. So the idea is to hopefully recruit enough volunteers to go down and do different sections at different times and get those signs installed the way that they may be engineered once all of that is back. I wanted to present that to you and see if you have any questions, and happy to be here today.
Commissioner Wood, you have any questions, comments?
I got some questions. How are you going to make it not ruin the river?
Well, that's
The last thing you want to see is a sign going down the river.
well, we want to make sure that the colors are, and these are not set in stone colors here. We would definitely collaborate with some of the landowners and make sure that the colors and the way that the signs are set up are engineered to fit into the background and not be obtrusive or too large, just to where it's going to disturb the views.
I think you showed me something a while back. Is it still that?
Well, there may have been
The
a
river's
drawing.
pretty powerful, especially you're going to find out this weekend when we get 5 or 8 inches of rain again. How are they going to stay in place?
Right. And well,
I mean, I hate to be negative, but I'm just curious.
oh, for sure. We're working with the engineer, and hopefully to be able to have those signs stamped with an engineer stamp of approval will help. I'm sure some of the signs could be attached to trees in some areas. There are projects like this throughout this. There's not as many in the state, but there are a few mile marker projects in the state or in other states. I can get back to you on what rivers those may be on. But we would definitely get together any groups to collaborate.
They're definitely needed. They're not far from the river.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea for safety concerns and issues, and I know some are aware and some may not be, but I think it was during COVID that we had kids that was a non-English speaking parent put them on the river thinking it would come back around, and they had to do a rescue. And I mean, I'm sure those kids probably didn't have a cell phone with them or anything, but if I was tubing the river, it'd make me feel a little bit better if I had an emergency, if I knew I could kind of help pinpoint to 911 where I was on the river. That would be very helpful. I think it's going to hopefully could save some lives. You never know. So, and I don't know how you affix them so that the current don't take them down the river at some point, but you want them close enough to the river where you could see them, but not to where if you get 8 inches of rain, it don't wash them away. So I'm sure there's an expert somewhere that knows where to
We'll
put 'em.
definitely consider all of the suggestions, and something we had also talked about was in years after they're all installed, making sure that there's a volunteer group that can go down and check them along the way.
Yeah, it has to be checked regularly.
Mr. Morris? I'm all in favor of doing it. I think they're definitely needed. And, I mean, just not only for the people that are at risk in the river, but the first responders. I mean, they need some help. It's been days trying to find people where if they could get some identification, they could use a lot less resources, so that would be a benefit as well. All I have.
Commissioner Mendenhall?
Yeah, Tori, first of all, thanks for all your involvement in this. I know you've had quite a bit of involvement in it, and when a few years ago when we first started talking about over on Pitzer Road, I went over there several times as we got this project underway. And it's a very nice access area over there. I tell you that they did a good job with that. I want to thank a couple other people. First of all, I want to thank Jimmy Flife. I tell you, Jimmy stays so involved. He helps Stokes County out in many ways. And of course, he's basically this centered representative for Duke Power in our area. And I see him at several meetings. And I just want to thank Jimmy on behalf of myself of being a county commissioner, and I'm sure all the other commissioners do also. And safety-wise, I certainly think this is great. As I come over to Denbury a lot in the summertime, and the number of people, you know, of course we have hanging rod, but the number of people that uses the Dan River is unbelievable. You come over on a Saturday or Sunday, and so when we got the access at Pitzer Road, and I've seen it improve as we go along, but for the $10,000 grant and for all Duke Power and Jimmy, I want to say thank you to all of them, and Tori for all your hard work. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate the good work, and also I just want to highlight the team concept, where it's just not economic development, but you incorporate other members of the organization, and I think that needs to continue. And can't say enough about Duke Energy and Jimmy. They contribute a lot to Stokes County, fund wise and support wise. So we don't want to forget their contributions. But anyway, thank you, and great job.
Thank you.
I move on to the discussion agenda. Next up is the tax agenda, and Richard Brim will present.
Good afternoon. First item, as always, is our monthly collection status report. The report, usually goes at the end of the month, but we run this one through January 5th. That's when the 2023 taxes become delinquent on the 6th. So through January 5th, we're at 94.26% collection, about $470,000 ahead of where we were last year. So that's good. Next item, we have real and personal releases less than 100. We have 3 accounts that total $221.88. Refunds of real and personal less than 100. We have 3 accounts that total $31.15. And the final item is the refunds more than 100. That's 3 accounts that total $403.12. Next item is our discovery and garnish report so far for fiscal year 23-24. We've discovered 245 accounts with a value of $2,726,605. That's generated $32,295.52 in revenue. We've processed 347 garnishments with a levy of $118,868.23. Next item is our report for the fiscal year so far for EMS building collections. We've billed 2,481 transports, charged $1,862,000 $1,862,723. We've collected $1,215,829, and there's been $471,720 of contractual write-offs that we have to do, we're mandated to do. And then the last report is our data max collections report that includes NC debt set-off, that's $5,630. Then the last item I have is early payment discount information. Stokes County, as you're aware, offers a 2% early discount on the annual property taxes for paid before September 1st. No action is required by the board if you choose to leave the 2% in place. If the board chooses to adjust the rate of percentage or rescind the early payment entirely, the board must do so by May the 1st per General Statute 105-360. And then I give you some different percentages that show you what it would break down to if you chose to reduce that amount. Generally, though, we get about 53 or 54% of our taxes in the first first month of collection in the discount period. So that 2% does get the cash flow rolling in. Only other thing I have is on Monday, February the 19th, the tax office, along with the Register of Deeds and Economic Development, will be at King Recreation at 11 a.m. in the lower level there off of White Road. And I'll be doing a presentation on the 2025 reappraisal and just giving some updates and some information to make the citizens in the area aware. So if any of you guys can attend, that'd be great.
What was that time again?
11 a.m., February the 19th. That's on a Monday. 11 a.m. And then the only other thing I have is move the refunds, real and personal, more than 100 to the February 12th consent agenda.
More, do you have any comments, questions?
Yeah, just one, Richard. The discount thing, you said you had to have, if we were going to change that, we'd have to do it before the budget's approved. It'd have to be by May 1st.
May 1st, yes,
It'd
sir.
have to be a separate item other than just doing it during the budget.
You'd have to, we actually have to send that to Raleigh, and they have to approve it, because there's something in the statutes that says that this board can put a rate out there, but it has to be a reasonable rate. I don't know at what point, the percentage is not reasonable. In the state, there's 37 counties that offer 2% discount, and we're one of those, and for early payment. And the rates range from anywhere from 0.5% to 3%. There's only one county that's 3%. That's Mitchell County, but most counties are 1 to 2%. And Alamance County, I talked to their administrator, and they done half of 1%, because when you offer early payment discount, escrow companies have to take advantage of that. So that's why they offered such a low amount to get that cash flow coming in.
Maybe you and Amber will talk about whether we need to stay at 2% or not. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other, but that's a lot of money, $400,000. So I don't know if we accomplish the same thing by doing 1% or 1.5% or not.
We would definitely get all the escrow companies
You
to
get the
pay.
escrows, definitely. So,
But I can talk with Amber and Lisa about that if you like.
yeah, just do that and maybe come back and give us some thoughts on it. If you want to keep it the same, or we can tinker with maybe lowering it a little bit.
Mr. Mendenhall?
Yes, first I want to ask if you would repeat the date and time up there at White Road. That was February what?
19th, Monday, at 11 a.m. Lower level of King Rec.
We'll try to make that. I think it was a very good detailed report, Richard. I just want to throw in my 2 cents on the early payment discount of 2%. I'm 100% keeping it like it is right now. And of course, I'm just one person on the board of 5, and you and Amber and Lisa certainly can discuss it. But I just want to echo I don't know how many people that talks to me about the 2% early payment discount that uses it, and I think, did you say over 50%
This year was 53.75%.
53%. So, I mean, just a lot of people, they come to me and say, hey, we like the early payment discount, and they use it. And it'd be different if we didn't have the 5 or 10% of people in the county that use that. But it's a very popular thing. I mean, in my opinion, and I'm just one person. But I'd like to see that kept it too if we can. But everybody else certainly have their comments. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Wood?
Good job, Richard. I mean, I have no questions other than that, and I'm not going to touch the 2% thing. There's some stuff you need to leave alone. Thanks.
I would agree with that. And thank you for a good report. We appreciate all your work, all the time and effort that goes into those reports, and all the good information.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. You did a great job. Thank you.
Judging from feedback from other commissioners, maybe y'all don't need to have that conversation.
I'm just giving the information. That's totally the board's
Richard, I didn't mean to stir up hornet's nest by being the first one, but I just have so many people that comes to me and says, hey, they make the extra effort to come up here and get that early payment discount. It's just I was just throwing that out as my opinion. I'd like to see it kept, but like I said, everybody else has the right to their own opinion.
Understood. I just want to give the information because if that come up in a budget meeting and we were into May and you have to have it done, the resolution done before May, and we paint ourselves in a box. So just giving the
I
information.
get a bill from another state with some property I have and has no discount. They send you the bill in January, tell you to pay it by the end of January, or if you wait to February, it goes up 5 or 6%. And if you wait to March, it goes up 5% more. So, there's a whole different spectrum.
Absolutely.
I like our system a lot better than theirs.
So.
All right, next up is the draft resolution authorizing the establishment of an occupancy tax and tourism development authority, and Tori May will be presenting.
Thank you for having me up here again today. So as you've all seen in the agenda, the draft resolution that's needed to start implementing and levying the occupancy tax in Stokes County and the formation of the Tourism Development Authority, the authority who will be tasked with making suggestions and guiding the directions of how the funds received from occupancy tax in the county will be spent to further marketing our destination, develop amenities and additional attractions and within Stokes County. As you know, anytime you're inviting more people to stay overnight in a vacation rental, you're helping the economy because they're here and they want to visit a local restaurant or an event or something that's going on in the area. And hopefully the Tourism Development Authority, once it's formed, will be able to allot a portion of the 1/3 of the funds that can be allotted toward projects to helping to support some local events and further their marketing, or potentially update sidewalk projects, use it as grant funds to leverage additional grant opportunities, as Eddie mentioned down at our meeting that we had at the Arts Place. There's a lot of opportunity there. And of course, the 2/3% of the occupancy tax would be used toward marketing. As you see on page 2 in the resolution, we outlined the number of members to be on the Tourism Development Authority, and we are suggesting 7 voting members with 3 ex officio non-voting members. 3 of the 7 members must be affiliated with the businesses of collecting the tax in the county and shall be appointed to the authority. And we're suggesting that they would serve 2-year terms. 4 out of the 7 members must be currently active in promotion of the travel and tourism in the county. These members should be involved in businesses or professions who have demonstrated an interest in tourism development in such a way that their expertise would benefit the authority. These members will serve 3-year terms. Of those 4 members, the below breakdown shall be followed. 1 member shall be nominated by each of the governing bodies from either the town of Danbury or the city of King and the town of Walnut Cove. So our idea of making sure that we collaborate, since this is the county.
Is this
The county resolution was presented by the state in a
is this
state
set
bill
in
or city
stone?
bill.
That statement there. That
The-
can't be changed.
Which statement?
The one member from each.
Well, no, that's not set in stone. That's just what we're suggesting. But in the resolution from the state, it talks about how the membership of the TDA should be formed, with 1/3 of the members being individuals who are affiliated with businesses that collect the tax in the county, and at least 1/2 of the members individuals who currently are active in promotion of travel and tourism in the county. So that's how we sort of formed. We started with the number of 7 for the number of board members, and then 1/3 of that 7 would be the 3 who are pretty much vacation rental owners who will apply to be on the authority, and then the other 4 members of the half that would be folks who have an interest in tourism. So the idea there would be that we are allowing the town councils to recommend and nominate someone to be on the TDA, and when they recommend that person, that they have taken into consideration that that person they're recommending has some interest in tourism, and they're not necessarily a vacation rental owner, but somebody with that 1/2 of the individuals who are currently involved in promotion of travel and tourism in the county. And then the other of the 4 members would be someone appointed by the Board of Commissioners. Of course, it says in this legislation from the state that it all falls back on the Board of Commissioners to I don't know exactly where it's at. Let me see. It's the responsibility. The Stokes County Board of Commissioners shall designate 1 member as the authority chair and shall determine the compensation of any to be paid to the authority. The authority shall meet at the call of the chair and shall adopt rules and procedures to govern its meeting. The finance officer of Stokes County shall be ex officio non-voting member, an officer of the authority. So that's one of our ex officios that are mentioned, and we also mentioned that someone from the county manager's office would be an ex officio officer, and someone from economic development and tourism. But it's all of the nominations to be appointed to the board have to come before the Stokes County Board of Commissioners to be appointed onto the TDA. Anytime a term expires or someone leaves a term. Did you all get a chance to read the resolution, the draft? That was a collaboration between me and Richard and Eddie and Amber.
And I'm just throwing stuff out, okay?
Yeah.
And Rick, I'm gonna put you on the spot and you can answer. You representing the mayors, okay? Why don't we ask the mayors to serve on this for each town instead of them nominating somebody? Because they know more about their town than anybody.
Yeah, I mean, they can,
Is that-
nominate themselves. I mean,
Is that asking too much, Rick? I know your plate's full.
If you open me up to answer, I would like to see one of our city council people be up
Okay,
there.
okay.
Personally, one that possibly just got elected, so they had 4 years.
That's what I wanted, was your opinion, okay?
Yeah, that's, I mean,
So just leave it like it is.
yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks.
Anybody else? Any questions, comments?
Looks good to me.
Mr. Morris?
Looks good to me too. I just think we need to bend over backwards to make sure this is a very transparent, fair process where anybody that's interested can put in the application, and we do a very open, straightforward analysis and before we appoint these folks to make sure that we get the right people on there. And then and kind of alluded to it earlier about how we distribute the funds, or TDA, I guess, will decide that, but keep it flexible so we can do smart things with the funds and not limit ourselves, to this exact amount here or this exact amount there, but something where we make sure we get the best bang for the buck for these dollars that we're getting. That's all I have.
Commissioner Fox, anything?
Well, I think the makeup of the board, the way it's presented is fine. The members, I don't have any problem with that. I would like to know how other counties go about doing this. If they're, if the money is how the money is distributed, if it's determined by the committee or the authority, the Occupancy Tax and Tourism Development Authority, or if it's in the resolution itself as to how it should be distributed, I guess is my question.
Rockingham County, they as a county started collecting occupancy in 1991, and then in 2005 they created interlocal agreements with different towns for ways or how a portion of they collect 3% in Rockingham County, so they formed a interlocal agreement with a few of their towns, the incorporated towns, as to what they would distribute to those towns. I have a copy of those resolutions, the interlocal agreements, but I can't quote them word for word. But I did.
It says in the resolution, if I can speak for a second, it says in the resolution, and this reflects directly from the state legislation, that the authority has to use 2/3 of the funds at least to promote travel and tourism, and shall use the remainder for tourism-related expenditures in the county. The legislation specifically says that, and it'll be up to the TDA how that's spent, if that makes sense. So it has to be spent in those sections, and that's why we include it in the resolution. But any more specific than that, it's up to the TDA how it's to be spent. Unless you're talking about percentages for, different, municipalities and stuff like that, and then we can work with that in the resolution. But as far as if you're talking about spending it on something specific, like the promotion of a certain business or something like that, I think you're getting a little too specific in
Right,
the
for the
resolution,
resolution.
because we have to follow the 2/3 and then the 1/3. Yeah.
Now, if you think about Surrey County, the towns of Pilot Mountain, Mount Airy, Elkin all submitted resolutions to start collecting occupancy tax before the county did in the unincorporated areas. Surrey County started collecting in 2009. They also have a partnership, so there's 5 different TDAs that are doing different work in Surrey County, and I've heard that at times that gets confusing. And then in Surrey County, they've used some of that 1/3 to fund a sidewalk and seating area outside of their Andy Griffith mural that was newly painted on the wall. And I think Pilot Mountain's TDA and the partnership, they team up and put a little marketing money toward that Pilot Mountain Outdoor Festival that they're having. So, these event coordinators would be able to come before the TDA in hopes that they'd be able to share and request or put their bid in to have some funding allotted. And also, Chris Kavanaugh with Magellan Strategies told us that you want to make sure in the first couple of years you build up a fund balance, because most TDAs have about an 8% fund balance to support in case something went bad, like with the COVID times.
So, I have a question. So, even though we started the resolution first, so we kind of did opposite what Surrey did. So, can we do an interlocal agreement and just let them do their own little TDA?
I'm sure that we can explore that. That's what Rockingham has with Reedsville and Madison and Eden. And I have copies of those, but I've read them, but I can't quote them. But it's some percentage of their 3% that they're allotting to those towns. And there's still one TDA, though, in Rockingham County, where Surrey County has 5 TDAs.
Surrey has 5.
Yeah,
Surrey has 5.
Surrey, they're Pilot Mountain, Mount Airy, and Elkin have a TDA. Surrey County has a TDA, and then there's a partnership between them.
The reason I ask is Surrey County is one of the counties in the state that has 3 school systems. You have Elkin City Schools, Mount Airy City Schools, and then you have Surrey County Schools. And then so I'm wondering, Pilot Mountain, Elkin, Mount Airy, and And that's 3, so.
The Surrey County for the unincorporated areas, that's 4, and then there's a partnership,
Fifth.
part of the partnership, the TDA partnership.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
I think when we started doing this, I was talking to you and Eddie both, I believe, and maybe Amber was in on the conversation, but we were trying to be careful not to make a bunch of little pots of money that wouldn't be enough to do anything with. Try to keep it kind of consolidated into a big pot of money where you could do major projects or whatever. And then, so I would keep, and I think it probably needs to be a balanced approach over a longer period of time. For instance, you know, one year you may have something where you'd want, like if we did the thing that the King folks were asking for, or 1%, 1%, 1%, we may have some year where we need to spend more than 1% for King or Walnut Cove based on some project they're doing. And then the next year, there may be a project somewhere else in the county that would need more and they wouldn't need as much based on you already spent a big chunk there before. So I just would like to make sure we keep it flexible and probably not try to break it up into a bunch of little small pots that, like I said, would be such a small amount of money that you really couldn't do much with it by itself without the combined effect of the total amount.
And I think Eddie made a good point at that meeting we had at the Arts Place about being able to leverage some of those funds. So Richard has, in tax office, estimated that we could potentially receive about $75,000 or around that number in the tax at 6%. And Eddie made a mention that, you know, you could potentially leverage some of that fund. So if 1/3 of that, and you wanted to use $10,000 to help with a sidewalk or a greenway project, Chris at Magellan Strategies told us that that's some things that folks do in communities. They'll help out with putting some funds into those projects. That there are other buy-ins from other groups that are putting these together. And then Chris also mentioned that, you know, in recent history, the counties are applying for the occupancy tax just to help out with making things more streamlined. No confusion of the multiple groups.
Well, I think I just, I mean, I know King's here today, but, you know, we haven't talked to anybody from Walnut Cove. We haven't talked to anybody from Danbury that I know of.
Amber and myself went around in early last year, 2023, and we went to each of the town councils. Town of Danbury, they were the first one we went to, and they were all on board with the county taking care of it all because we have the tax office and the finance office here to keep up with all of that information of the tax coming in from their rentals. And, you know, they have a very minimal staff down there and no one to manage any of it. Town of Walnut Cove was also on board in a similar fashion to the town of Danbury. And then we presented to the town of King, and they were all, receptive to the whole idea and wanted to be included along the way. And we've hopefully outlined that in this resolution that we want to include and represent everyone inclusively, as we have been doing from economic development in terms of promoting tourism under the county budget currently.
So from the town of, or the city from King, I mean, do you have a consensus agreement, or have you talked about this on your agenda on what y'all want to do?
No, sir. We're just waiting to get somebody appointed to the TDA so we can get more information. Pretty green.
Well, are you asking for this resolution to be approved today or move to action for next time?
Move to action for the next meeting.
That'd definitely be appropriate, I think, so we can have further discussions with these folks. And,
Yeah. I mean, our plan is to start collecting it in April. So that way, once it was approved, whatever changes we made, we could make sure to advertise that and make sure everybody knew what was going on. We'd contact, you know, the city and the towns again and just let them know that they then nominate somebody, and then the commissioners will go through that process of appointing the TDA. So there's still a lot of steps to be taken even once this is approved. So that's why we were hoping for a couple months between whenever this is approved and April before we actually start collecting it.
And I would like to make a point that I spoke with the Rockham County TDA that's set up in about the same way that this one would be. potentially. And she likes the text and the idea. I sort of collaborated with her on some ideas, and she says that it's our formation is the suggested formation is something that she would like to make some amendments to her resolution governing document for the PDA.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Thank you, Tori.
Thank you.
Next up is county emails for members of the Board of Commissioners, and Commissioner Cox will start it off.
Well, I just thought it might be appropriate to talk about this since I know recently we had some emails coming in. Some questions were asked to me of why different board members had different emails, and we weren't all county emails. And that just got me thinking on the subject, because I know I think Rick mentioned some of them went into his junk mail, and he had to retrieve them or look there for some of the emails and things. And it just got me thinking about it, because I know one time we did have a public information request where basically the ones who had the county email, the IT department was just able to go through and look for certain emails pertaining to that subject, and then it was up to other individual board members to go through their own, kind of police themselves, I guess, or go through their own email and give those emails over. So, which basically just doesn't seem as transparent as I think I would like it to be, and other people in the community would like it to be. So, doing a little bit of research on it, it just seems that it's best practice seems to be for anybody in government to use the emails that are given to them by the county, federal, state level government, whatever they're in. And in talking to Amber, I was asking her if all our other employees are required to use county email, which they are for any county business. So it just seems like we should model what we ask of our employees to do, which is to use the county email address for county business. I think it's still fine to have personal email for some things, but in general, if you're doing county business, I think it should be, we should just be required to use the county provided email so that it can be archived how it should be and kept for as long a period of time. It's a public record. Our emails are public record. And then, it brings into question, if you're using your own personal email, how are they being stored and who has access to them, and it just brings a lot of problems. I think if they're archived securely, is there any way to have any unauthorized access to those emails? And if it's all at the county, it's just no questions. It's just, safely archived and there's no unauthorized access to it. So it's just about protecting the records, I think, and protecting who has access to the records more than anything for me. It's no personal anything about anybody using it or not using it. It can be inconvenient, I know, to have more than one email address, of course, keeping it separate, but it seems like, Jennifer's here, and we can always ask her opinion on this matter from a legal standpoint. If we ever had a court issue before a judge, or they asked for stuff, and my question is, what would happen if we said to a judge, well, we don't know because we don't have those records?
So the potential issues I see with a personal email address versus a state or county maintained, I should say, email address is that when you send something from your personal email address, and it's a county business, then if someone does a public records request, or if you're, say we're in the midst of litigation and there's a subpoena that's issued, any of your personal emails could be subject, basically. So it can cast a much wider net into some things that may have nothing to do with what the public records request is, but because it's being sent from a personal email address, it can sort of get sucked in, and it sort of, in my opinion, would trample on some of your personal liberties. Like you might be sending an email, I'm not saying you are, but you might not necessarily want that email to be public record. But because of using a personal email address to conduct county business, it essentially makes things public record that would not normally be public record. And in just doing a little bit of research on this, it looks like that the general guidance is saying, like with the North Carolina Archives and with the school of government, that best practice is to avoid using a personal or private email account for public business. So there's not necessarily a particular statute or anything like that on point, but the general guidance seems to be to try to segregate those as much as we can. I did check with Ty as well, and he said he thought that might be a good idea. But certainly up to your discretion as a board as to how or if you guys want to implement that.
Is it illegal to use your personal email?
It's not. No, it's perfectly legal to do it. There are just some, I guess it's sort of a risk-benefit analysis,
Okay.
and so that would sort of fall to you guys rather than a legal analysis. It's more so, do you want to, if you want to use your personal email, do you want to deal with some of the potential risks of dealing with personal emails? So it's a discretionary thing.
Anybody else got any questions, comments? Commissioner Mendenhall?
No, I do remember when I was superintendent of the school system, my emails read something like Bonnie Mendenhall at Stokes County Schools at StokesCountySchools.com. That's how it was. It was a professional, where a superintendent had at Stokes County Schools at the end. Sort of like Sonya's saying here, it would be a county type thing. That's what I had there. Now, I don't have that here. I use my own personal email. I mean, I'm not a superintendent. Publicly, I'm just telling you, I use my own personal email. But I get everything. And I understand Commissioner Cox's concern, but I mean, I can give you an example. When we went through the school situation a few weeks ago, it all came through to me, all the emails that were sent out from different people all over the county. I had hundreds. I'm not sure if anybody else did, but I did. I had hundreds of emails from different parts of the county, but it all shot through to my personal email, and I read each one. Because if somebody sends me an email, if they go to the trouble to send me an email, I'm going to read it. And if there's any way possible, I'm going to reply back to that person so they'll know that I got it. However, we got in that situation with the school situation, and well, I can tell you up front, I had, just to be honest, I had 400 or 500 emails on that. But I did read them all. But when I was in the school system, my email was different. It was set up where it would go through at StokesCountySchools.com or whatever. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Wood?
I use my personal email for the following reasons. I'm still working. I do not need 3 email accounts. Work alone, 250 to 500 emails a day. Personal, I wish I could eliminate half the garbage I get, but I also, the second reason I like it, I get I read my personal phone quickly, the emails in instead of connected. So I see what's going on. And there is, for some reason, there is a delay from some stuff I get from you, Amber. Most of it comes through Instance, but I don't think it's through the county. I think it's just the internet system alone. But let me get rid of this year when I don't have another phone and all them emails, because I'm gonna tell you what, you spend your whole life reading emails and cleaning them up. That's it.
My opinion is from day one, I ran on open and transparent government. Day one, beach handler, Stokes County government. But it's a hot topic throughout the state. That was on our agenda that we went to Thursday, and just like Jennifer said, it's a best practice thing. I think it was the Moore County attorney presented, and she said that she's just telling the nightmares of having to go, especially litigation, of going to person email. Personally, in Fayetteville, there's no way I would want to put my personal email in jeopardy with all the litigation that goes on down there and public record requests. It's so much easier. You don't get bugged. In other words, if you've got a private email system, that if you're going to get constant harassed by legal to make sure that everything is, and this way IT takes care of it. What is, and you're done with it. But we don't have to, so.
I did check. We always refer to what the other counties do. Allegheny doesn't have none of them.
There's a lot of counties that don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just.
My thought was, I just think that if we're going to require everybody that works for the county to do it, we have an email policy in place that even goes so far as to tell them how the signature has to be. I think it tells y'all that it has to have your name, your title, certain things, which is what the school systems was too. It had to say that anything could be subject to a public records request. It's a public, all that should be on all of our emails, whether it's private, our personal email or a county email. Our signature should say all that because our policy says that. And we're requiring all of our department heads to do that, but we're not following it. We're not doing it. So I just think we should all be on the same page, and if we're requiring it, we should model that and do it ourselves and have that, because I just don't understand how, if something is subject to a public records request, then in my opinion, if that happens again and we're using our personal email, then we should have to turn over our username and password to IT and let them search our email, which I don't think any of us really want to do. I'm not advocating that we do that. I'm just saying that's what a company would do if it was if you were a company employee that insisted on using your private email.
So do you have the county email
I
address?
have the county email.
So it's just you and I then that have the
Right.
Okay.
So I'm just saying we should be using technology to enhance transparency and accountability of the government instead of using it to thwart public access to the government and public records, because that's what it looks like on the outside looking in. I'm not saying anybody's doing that, and I know it's not purposeful. It's just like you were saying. It's a pain in the butt to have 3 email addresses. I get that. But in the event of a public records request, I don't know how that, I know how it was handled the last time, and I don't know that that's appropriate for us to police ourselves and say, oh, these are the emails, here you go. Or I don't have any emails, sorry.
Well, if it's litigation, it goes more than just your honor code.
Yeah.
It's
Well, if it goes into litigation and you go before a judge and you say, I don't know, all these people are using their personal emails, so we have no clue, I think you're opening yourself up to...
I don't think anybody would go in front of a judge and say that.
I don't want to go in front of a judge and say that.
Oh, I know that. Huh? Okay, go.
I have a personal email address. It's been posted on the website here for a long time. I've not had any issues with communication. I'm not concerned about the risk associated with litigation, and I want to keep using my personal email. That's my vote when we get to it.
Any more discussion?
Well, I guess when I was in the school system, I just had gotten so used to how the school system email went, and I knew.
Well, you didn't have a choice. We all had to use it.
Absolutely. So for 5 years, I always came through the school system's email situation. And as Commissioner Carr said, there was no choice for me. The school system all went that way. However, and so of course, being superintendent, I certainly was the model that I couldn't say I'm going to use my personal email, but 1,100 employees underneath me have got to go another way. So I use the same thing everybody else uses, but now this is my 8th year as county commissioner, and I've used my personal email for 8 years. And there's always a chance. I know there's a chance of things being subpoenaed and everything. And Mr. Chairman, you as chairman, I know I was elected chairman twice on this board. However, I never, even as chairman, I used my personal email for county commissioners. I did. I used my personal email as chairman. But I'm sort of like, be honest, like Commissioner Morris and Commissioner Wood on this one. I mean, if the vote goes or everybody else wants to do it, I mean, I certainly will do it. It's not a problem. But at this point, I prefer to keep mine. But if the other 4 wants to go that way, I'll certainly go with you. I mean, it's not a big deal to me. But I just know.
I'm just throwing it out there because I think it could be something down the line. And I was asked about it, and I didn't have a good answer, so I thought maybe we should just discuss it. So that's what we're doing. But if there's not enough thought of why it would make sense for everybody to be doing the same thing, then whatever.
Sometimes you just have to do what's best for yourself. That's what I'm doing. So
Exactly.
One of the complaints I've heard in the past from previous commissioners, I certainly wouldn't name any of them, but they all had the county emails that never got any response back from them. I don't think they ever checked them.
Well,
You know,
that could be
I've heard-
problematic too.
I've heard that on more than one occasion.
I mean, it's no different than any email account, really. And you can get I have my county email on my phone, just like I can check it from my phone, or I don't have to have a laptop to check it. You can log in from your phone and check it, and it's nothing to it, really. To have that, it's just, and I like to just keep that things separate, because if it went into my personal email, there's a lot bigger chance that I would miss something than if it's county business and it comes to the county email and it's kept separate. I'm not going to miss it. If it comes in with all the coupons from Macy's and well, we just won't name
I was going to say, don't name them all because we all get them from it.
then I might miss something. So that's one reason I like to. They need my money.
So can we just got consensus to leave it alone?
Table it for now. I don't think there's any consensus. We'll bring it back when Keith retires.
Yes, end of the year.
Okay. All right.
And that would help me because
There
I
you
didn't
go.
file
Relieving.
for, I didn't file for re-election until at the end of November.
Right. Okay.
Maybe we'll eliminate them at all.
You can grandfather me, and then I won't be running again.
It was a good discussion. Though.
Yes, it was. And see, the reason I
See, we
saw
can
that,
disagree.
I knew exactly because being in the school system and it's all consistency and certainly, gosh, as superintendent, sometimes if we had a weather situation, for example, and I called school off and it went on the 5 o'clock news, and part of the county might not have had anything hardly on the ground.
Right.
But you cross that mountain, like I was at Nancy Reynolds, Sandy Ridge, and North
Go
Stokes.
to the board meeting
Let
tonight
me
and
tell
listen.
you, there were times where, what I had to start doing, and this is where we got to, is some of the county would not get anything hardly. They might not even have a tenth of an inch, but and Lisa, her husband could concur to what I'm gonna say. We had about 7 people that would ride the roads, make a decision on school closings, and then they'd all call in to me and say what their opinion was, and then I'd make the final call. But it might not have a tenth of an inch, and I'm just throwing out cities. One at Cover King might not have but a tenth of an inch, but I would be driving toward between Denbury and Sandy Ridge, and it might be 3 or 4 inches already on the ground. And I mean, the most famous one was Moore Springs Road. I don't know if you ever go down Moore Springs Road in the wintertime if it's snowing,
I try not to.
but buddy, you better be careful because we had 2 buses at North Stokes that ran off the road at Moore Springs, and that's all I got. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to extend the conversation.
Well, one thing I mentioned to Jennifer, and she's going to check, is how long should the county archive our emails for those types of reasons. And so if
I thought they were available forever anyway.
There are some types of it depends on that's what I was talking to Amber about a few minutes ago. Depending on the type of information, emails are weird. So depending on the subject of the email, there are different records retention requirements. So something that might have to do with like a contract might have a longer retention than just like a memo on something.
If you want to get rid of a bunch of people, check the emails. I've seen it happen in our county.
Yeah.
They swung the axe, man. It was unbelievable what was going on emails.
So I'm gonna check with the School of Government and see if they have any like general guidelines that we need to be following for email retentions.
Thank you, Jennifer.
I mean, really, it needs to be in our county policy. All right, the next up is the Walnut Cove Planning and Zoning Board ETJ appointments. And before
Medical service.
I'm sorry. Man, I'm already trying to get through this to get into closed session. Next up is the Medical Services Consultant Agreement. And Commissioner Morse will start.
Hard copy.
We've got a medical service agreement that was provided to the board and certainly available to the public, that with a company called Turning Point, that we've dealt with some and were recommended by our group, HFG, that's doing the feasibility study. This is a consulting group that would help us determine our path forward with medical services in the county, in King at the hospital and in Pine Hall. And so the contract is basically just a scope of work for them to advise us as we develop our strategy for what we do with the completion of the feasibility study. Anything to add to that, Amber or anybody?
No, that pretty much sums it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we'd like to get talking with them fairly quickly, and if we can move it to action today if the group is
Yeah, I think we
okay with doing that.
Consensus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Do that.
And then budget amendment number 43,
Right.
along with that, I believe.
What was the number again?
I believe it's 43. Let me just make sure that. Is that right, Lisa? Yeah, 43.
Okay. Now, next up is the Walnut Cove Planning and Zoning Board. But before we get into this, I don't know if maybe we should table this because Chad from the Jarvis from the Walnut Cove Town Board, he had mentioned that he wanted another person that had sent an email, but apparently it hasn't hit our server.
I haven't
So only
received.
two people was included in the email. So I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I had gotten that email from Corey last week or week before last to have it on the agenda, so I didn't know about a third one. So
Yeah,
we can
I didn't
table
see it either. I didn't see it.
One or two openings?
There's two,
Two.
but there's a third application, is what they're saying. But I haven't seen it, so I don't.
Let's just table it.
Just move it back to discussion for
Do
the
a
next one.
consensus.
Make sure we've got that third one.
Yeah.
Right.
It's out there.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It'll be
Yeah.
back on discussion next time.
Okay.
I agree with that.
All right, next up is the action agenda. You want to do the budget amendment number 43 first? Or
You can just do them together. Just make a
just do
motion.
them together?
Yeah, just make a motion to approve budget amendment 43 and the medical services consulting agreement, or the proposal with Turning Point.
Got to get a motion?
So moved, motion to approve budget 43, is that correct, Amber?
Yes, sir.
And the medical services consulting agreement. Motion to approve, I'll make a
Second.
motion to
All right, all in favor?
approve.
All opposed? Any more discussion on? Okay, all right, motion passes. So, do you want to read the reason we're going into closed session?
Yes. To prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of the state or the United States pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A1, and to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A3.
Does anybody take a 5-minute or 10-minute break before we go into closed session? Or do you want to keep going?
I think we need to vote on going into closed
Well,
session.
I was going to do that, but I wasn't going to.
I'd like a 5-minute break.
Okay. Okay, can I get a motion
Make a
to?
motion that we exit open and enter closed.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? All right. All right. We're back in open session at 5:20. Can I get a motion
Make
to
a
adjourn?
motion, we adjourn.
Get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.